Alien girl hauls human out of a Quake zone, but human finds his badge logged under her name. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The dust hung in the air like a warm, dry fog, coating Ethan Cole's tongue with the taste of powdered concrete. His helmet visor flickered with warning icons, the kind that usually meant, "Get out," or "You're about to regret staying." But the ground beneath him kept trembling in short, nervous shakes, leaving him pinned beneath a twisted steel beam. The sun hadn't even finished rising over Ridgepoint Colony when the quake hit, a deep, growling shudder that rolled under the streets and folded entire structures like wet cardboard. Ethan had been checking stress gauges in an unfinished transit tunnel when the world decided to remind everyone that this planet wasn't fully tamed. Now he lay half-buried, breath shallow, ears ringing with a high-pitched whistle he couldn't shake. A shadow cut through the hazy daylight. Tall, steady, moving with purpose against a world that had lost its balance. For a second he thought it was another falling beam until he heard the soft hum of rescue armor, smooth, powered joints cycling with a calm rhythm. A pair of turquoise hands pressed against the steel above him. The voice that followed was low but sure, calm in a way that made the air feel less heavy. "Don't move, human." Ethan wasn't in any condition to argue. The beam lifted just enough for her to wedge a support brace beneath it. She didn't grunt or strain. The powered frame on her suit did most of the work, but he could tell by her stance that she would have tried even without it. She hooked a rescue line under his arms and eased him out, the ground crunching beneath her boots as she dragged him clear of the debris. Her height made the emergency lights flash against her skin in shifting shades of blue-green. She smelled faintly of clean metal and ozone, like the air before a rainstorm. When they reached an open stretch of cracked pavement, she knelt to check his breathing, her amber eyes scanning him with quick, clinical precision. "You're not broken," she said, as if giving him permission to keep living. Ethan tried to respond, but his throat felt tight, and not from dust alone. She stood, offering a hand. He took it, her grip firm, steadying. She didn't wait for thanks. She just turned toward the ruins again, surveying the shaking skyline. "Stay close," she called back. "Aftershocks aren't done with us." Ethan pushed himself upright, legs trembling, heart beating too fast. He didn't know her name yet. Didn't know why she had risked herself. But the way she moved, the certainty, the focus, told him one thing clearly. He was alive because she had chosen to make it so. Dust still drifted across the cracked pavement as Ethan steadied his breathing, the lingering tremors humming under his boots like a warning. The alien rescuer glanced back at him, her amber eyes narrowing just slightly, as if measuring how long he could stay upright before the ground decided to shake again. Her name was not spoken yet, but something in the way she moved suggested she already understood the zone better than any map. She tapped the side of her helmet, its visor flickering to life with soft turquoise glyphs. The language was unfamiliar, full of curved markings, but Ethan could tell she was reading structural stress lines in the ruined buildings around them. The air carried the faint scent of ionized dust, the kind that meant metal had been under strain. Ethan wiped his visor with the side of his glove, trying to get a clearer view of the main corridor that once led to the central transit hub. It was now buried under a slanted wall section that looked ready to crumble with the next breath of wind. He knew this district. He had inspected these expansion joints a dozen times during construction and had even argued that the south support needed reinforcement. Nobody listened. Not everyone trusted a human engineer to evaluate alien-designed towers. The alien rescuer motioned for him to follow, her stride long but measured, making sure he could keep pace on the uneven ground. Every footstep sent pebbles and small fragments skidding away. Ethan adjusted the straps of his rescue vest, checking his air level and pulse reading. Both were climbing too fast. She noticed. "Keep your breathing steady," she said. Her voice was calm, smooth like cooled glass. "Panic reads as fatigue in your suit. It will restrict your movement." "I am not panicking," Ethan said, though his voice cracked more than he anticipated. She did not challenge him. She simply motioned again, leading him toward a partially collapsed service station tucked behind a bent support pillar. Inside, emergency lanterns flickered against metallic walls. The dim light shimmered off her turquoise skin, making her look almost like she belonged to the glow itself. Ethan leaned against a crate to catch his breath. The rescuer scanned the room, checked the ceiling seams, and only after inspecting every corner did she crouch to examine his leg. A shallow bruise formed just below his knee, nothing alarming, but her expression tightened as if she was memorizing the injury for later. "You were lucky," she said. "If the beam had shifted another inch, you would not be standing right now." He could not tell if that was reassurance or a statement of pure fact. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I did not get your name." She paused for a moment, as if deciding whether he had earned it. Then she spoke. "Kira Thal." The syllables were clean and steady, like a designation with weight behind it. Ethan repeated it under his breath, the sound grounding him more than he expected. Kira adjusted her wrist console, its display reflecting off the lanterns. "There are more people trapped north of here," she said. "The path is unstable. I can take you to the evacuation perimeter if you cannot continue." Ethan straightened, shoulders tight but determined. "I can walk. I am an engineer. I might be able to help you assess the next collapse zone." Her eyes shifted, not quite surprise, but a small recalibration of how she saw him. "Very well," she said. "Stay close. The ground does not honor confidence." As they stepped back into the open, another mild tremor passed beneath them, making dust scatter like gray snowfall. Kira braced herself instantly, balanced and ready, while Ethan mirrored her stance a second late. She noticed, but said nothing. Instead, she pointed toward a narrow alley between fractured wall slabs. "This way," she said. "Time is short, and the aftershocks do not wait for anyone." Ethan followed her into the trembling light, the distant hum of rescue drones growing louder as they moved deeper into the broken district. The alley narrowed as Ethan and Kira moved deeper into the fractured district, the air thick with drifting grit that sparkled in the fading emergency lights. The tremors had softened into small pulses beneath their feet, like the planet was taking shallow breaths after shouting itself hoarse. Kira paused at the mouth of a tilted service corridor, raising her wrist console. A faint turquoise glow traced across her skin as the device scanned the shifting debris overhead. "It is holding," she said quietly, though her posture suggested she trusted the reading only halfway. Ethan stepped beside her and studied the corridor. The support beams had bowed inward, but the angle of the collapse made a narrow passage to the north side of the block. If they could reach it, they might access the upper utility tunnels where casualties were most likely. He felt the familiar tug of instinct, the engineer in him assembling structural maps in his head, even without diagrams. "If we move quickly," he said, "we can make it through before another tremor hits." The tension is distributed across the top beam, not the sides. Kira glanced at him, a small spark of respect flickering in her amber eyes. "You read collapse patterns almost as fast as my scanners," she said. "Almost," Ethan replied, managing a breath of humor. She motioned him forward. "Stay within 2 feet of me. If the ceiling shifts, I will pull you clear." He nodded, though he suspected she would do it even if he disagreed. They entered the corridor. Dust floated in suspended layers, disturbed only by their slow, careful movement. Every sound felt amplified. The soft hiss of Kira's suit servos, the crunch of grit under Ethan's boots, the distant hum of rescue drones somewhere above them. Halfway through, a faint vibration tickled Ethan's ankle. He froze. "Kira," he whispered, "do you feel that?" She lifted her chin, eyes narrowing as she sensed the same thing. Not a full tremor, just a warning ripple. "We move," she said. Her hand pressed lightly between his shoulder blades, guiding him faster but steady. They reached the far side just as a thin stream of dust trickled from the ceiling, a sign that the corridor had begun to settle. Again, outside, the air opened into a wider plaza, though it looked nothing like the clean-lined square Ethan remembered. Panels lay scattered like fallen leaves, and an emergency beacon flickered in uneven pulses near a dented railing. Kira approached the beacon, scanning its recorded logs. Ethan used the moment to check his own gear. His badge, clipped to his vest, blinked a muted blue. He tapped it to ensure the rescue network recognized him as an active engineer. The display flickered before steadying, and he exhaled in relief. Kira returned. 3 individuals were routed through this area after the first quake, she said. The signal trail ends near the transit maintenance shaft. If they sheltered there, they may still be waiting. Ethan nodded. That shaft was designed to withstand pressure changes. If they got inside, they might be safe. She tilted her head, considering him. You know these structures well. I helped draft the reinforcement plans, he admitted. Not all of them were approved, but I know where things tend to hold and where they do not. Kira's expression softened by a fraction. Then you will guide us. He blinked. Me? Your knowledge is precise, she said. I trust precision. The words settled over him quietly, unexpected but grounding. He felt the weight of responsibility shift from something heavy to something useful. Ethan took a slow breath, scanning the fractured plaza. The maintenance shaft is east of here, he said. We need to cut through the old service yard. It is lower, so it might have collected dust, but the structure beneath it is strong enough to walk. Kira gestured for him to lead, her presence steady behind him like a protective anchor. As they moved toward the service yard, Ethan could not shake the feeling that the planet was listening, waiting for the next moment to test them. But with Kira at his back and the faint hum of her suit lighting their path, the ruins felt just a little less uncertain. The service yard stretched before them in a shallow dip of cracked concrete, coated with a thin layer of dust that shifted in small ripples each time a breeze whispered through the ruins. Ethan scanned the area, recalling the original blueprints from memory. The maintenance shaft should have been just beyond the row of collapsed support crates, hidden beneath a slab of reinforced decking that had tilted, but not broken. Kira moved beside him, her steps silent despite the mechanical hum of her suit. Her visor cast soft turquoise light on the scattered debris, marking stress points in faint shimmering patterns. The ground is uneven here, she said quietly. Follow my path. The deeper layers took more of the shock. Ethan obeyed, placing each boot where her prints formed small impressions in the dust. The contrast between her confidence and the fragile world around them made the yard feel like a threshold, a quiet pause between danger and discovery. A metallic groan rolled across the plaza, deep and distant, but Ethan knew the sound. It was not a collapse. It was the long settling shift of a tower adjusting to new weight loads. It is stabilizing, he said. Kira gave a small nod, as if she had expected his assessment. They reached the far edge of the yard, where a large rectangular section of deck plating had lifted at a gentle angle. Ethan brushed away dust with his glove. Underneath, a faint glow pulsed in slow intervals, the kind used in emergency access points. This is it, he said. Kira knelt beside him, her hand tracing the outline of the hatch. It is intact, she said. That is unusual for this district. I submitted reinforcement recommendations for this part. Ethan replied quietly. It seems they were approved. Kira looked at him, something thoughtful passing through her expression. Your work held. He felt a small swell of pride, subtle but grounding. Kira tapped a sequence into her wrist console. The hatch clicked, releasing a faint hiss as trapped air equalized. She lifted it with controlled strength, revealing a narrow ladder lit by soft amber strips running down the shaft. Heat rose from below, warm and dry. If survivors are here, Kira said, they will be in the maintenance alcove near the first junction. Ethan descended first, boots finding the ladder rungs with careful precision. The shaft walls were made of composite alloy, smooth but dust-coated, carrying faint vibrations that felt like distant footsteps. Kira followed, her suit adjusting with a low hum as she moved. The alcove opened into a small chamber lined with tool cabinets and emergency supplies. A light flickered overhead, steadier than the ones above ground. Ethan noticed footprints in the dust. Human-sized. Small. Maybe one adult, two younger. He crouched and touched the faint prints, feeling their edges. Kira scanned them with her visor. 3 individuals, she confirmed. They passed through recently. Body heat traces remain. They may have moved to the secondary shelter, Ethan said. It is deeper, near the pressure stabilizers. Kira stepped into the corridor leading from the alcove, her presence filling the tight space with calm authority. Lead the way, Engineer Cole, she said. Your knowledge of this structure surpasses my database. The acknowledgement settled over him with quiet weight. He moved forward, guiding them through the narrow corridor where cables hung in gentle arcs, and the air hummed with steady low energy. The lights dimmed for a moment, responding to a minor fluctuation. Not dangerous, just the system adjusting. Ethan paused at a junction where 3 pathways branched. The left one sloped downward, its light stronger. This way, he said. Kira stayed close, her silhouette cutting a steady line behind him. As they moved deeper, the air grew warmer, carrying the faint smell of heated alloy. Ethan glanced at his badge. Its soft blue glow blinked once, twice, before registering the chamber ahead. They were definitely here, he said. The shelter is close. Kira placed her hand lightly on his shoulder, steadying him as another faint tremor whispered through the tunnel. Then we will find them, she said, and we will bring them out safely. Her confidence felt like a promise in the dim, trembling light. The tunnel grew quieter as Ethan and Kira approached the secondary shelter, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel like it came from miles away. The low hum of stabilizer coils pulsed through the alloy walls in slow, rhythmic beats, almost like the heartbeat of the structure itself. Amber floor lights guided a narrow path ahead, brushing soft reflections across Kira's turquoise skin as she walked beside him. Ethan paused near a junction where the corridor widened into a rounded chamber. He held up a hand, listening. No echoes, no movement, just a faint warmth carried on the air. The shelter door should be around the bend, he whispered. Kira nodded, her visor dimming to reduce glare. Proceed carefully. There may be structural stress we cannot see. They turned the corner, and there it was, a reinforced hatch half buried under fallen insulation panels. Ethan approached it slowly, brushing dust from its outer frame. The indicator light glowed a weak yellow, showing emergency power still connected. He rested his palm against the surface. It felt warm, not from heat, but from the presence of life inside. Kira knelt beside him, her suit motors quieting as she leaned closer. Someone is alive in there, she said softly. Ethan tapped the manual panel, watching it flicker in response. The system recognized his badge, blinking in a soft blue handshake. I can override it, he said. It will open slowly, but it should hold. Kira placed her hand lightly over his wrist. Do it. I will steady the panels above. Her calm certainty steadied him more than the wall behind his back. Ethan keyed the sequence. The hatch responded with a gentle click, then a low grinding as internal gears began to rotate. Dust drifted from above, and Kira braced one arm under the largest insulation slab, holding it in place with smooth, steady strength. The hatch eased open, revealing a small shelter illuminated by soft golden lights. Inside, 3 figures huddled near a supply crate, an older man wrapped in an emergency blanket and 2 children tucked close to him. Their eyes widened at the sight of Ethan and Kira. It is all right, Ethan said gently. We are here to get you out. The man exhaled, his shoulders trembling with relief. We felt the quakes, he said. The door jammed. I thought the stabilizers might fail. Kira stepped inside with measured grace, lowering herself to the children's level. Her visor retracted so they could see her face clearly. You are safe now, she said. We will guide you to the surface. The younger child reached out, touching Kira's hand with small, hesitant fingers. Ethan saw the slight shift in Kira's expression, a quiet softening, as if the moment touched something she rarely allowed to show. Ethan helped the man stand. His legs shook, but he leaned on Ethan with trust born from necessity. Kira lifted the smaller child with effortless care while the older one held Ethan's sleeve. They exited the shelter slowly, ensuring each step matched the group's pace. The corridor outside seemed brighter now, though nothing about the lights had changed. Ethan suspected it was simply the presence of hope filling the space. As they approached the ladder leading back to the service yard, Kira glanced at Ethan, her amber eyes reflecting the warm glow of the emergency strips. You guided us well, she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. We both did. Kira considered that for a moment, then nodded with the faintest hint of approval. Yes, she said. Together. Another gentle tremor rippled beneath them, reminding them the planet was still restless, waiting. Kira shifted her stance, securing the child more firmly in her arms. We should move, she said. The surface may be unstable again soon. Ethan took a breath, steady and grounded. Then let us get them out. And with that, they began the ascent, one careful step at a time, rising toward the trembling daylight above. The climb back to the service yard was slow, lit only by the soft amber glow from the tunnel strips and the faint shimmer from Kira's visor. Ethan guided the older child ahead of him on the ladder, keeping one hand close in case the rung shifted. Above them, Kira ascended with the younger child in her arms, her movements smooth and certain, as if the trembling structure recognized her steadiness and held itself together a little longer for her sake. When they emerged into the open yard, the afternoon light had dimmed behind drifting clouds of dust. Rescue drones hovered in distant patterns, their signals blinking in soft blue spirals as they mapped damaged zones. The air carried the heavy scent of settled debris, but it felt less hostile now that they had people to protect. Ethan helped the older man sit on a steady piece of paneling. The children huddled beside him, clutching blankets Kira had retrieved from her emergency kit. Kira stepped away to check the perimeter, scanning the horizon for the safest path toward the evacuation zone. Ethan followed her, brushing dust from his gloves. "They will be all right," he said. "You got to them in time." She looked at him, her amber eyes reflecting the steady pulse of her visor data. "We got to them," she corrected. "Your knowledge of the tunnels saved minutes that mattered." The compliment warmed him unexpectedly. For a moment the chaos around them seemed to quiet, leaving only the soft sound of wind pushing dust across broken ground. Ethan glanced back toward the survivors. "We should get them to the evacuation point. It is about a quarter-mile east." Kira examined the stabilizer readings on her wrist console. "The ground is less stable in that direction. There's a safer route north, but it is slower." Ethan's voice grew thoughtful. "Slow might be safer for them. The older man may not manage the quicker path." Kira observed him for a moment, her expression unreadable but not unkind. "You think like someone responsible for more than himself." Ethan let out a quiet breath. "Maybe today requires that." Kira nodded once, accepting his reasoning without argument. She approached the small group, her presence grounding them like a calm tide. "We will move north," she said. "The route is longer, but it will support your weight better." The children nodded, trusting her instantly. Ethan noticed that the older man looked at Kira the way people looked at a fire shelter during a storm, grateful, anchored, reassured. As they began the trek, Ethan walked beside Kira, guiding her through pockets of cracked pavement he remembered from blueprints. But something held in the air, a quiet tension not caused by the aftershocks. Kira sensed it as well. When the children moved ahead with the older man, Kira lowered her voice. "Ethan," she said, "your badge signature appeared twice on my console. Once for tunnel access, then again under my name." Ethan frowned, touching the badge clipped to his vest. "Under your name?" "Yes," Kira replied. "The system logged you as an asset retrieved by me." The phrasing felt cold, even in her calm voice. Ethan stared at the badge, its blue indicator pulsing softly, as if unaware of the weight of its own data. "That should not happen," he said quietly. "I am a registered engineer, not an asset." Kira studied him, her expression sharpening with something like concern. "I know," she said. "That is why it troubles me." They continued walking, the dust shifting around their boots. Ethan felt a knot tightening in his chest. Not fear. Something more complicated. Something close to a question he was not sure he wanted answered. Kira walked beside him, her amber eyes forward, her tone steady. "When we reach the evacuation point," she said, "we will check the full system log. Whatever it says, we will face it together." Her words settled around him like a quiet promise in the trembling air. The northern route led them across a series of low support ridges, each one rising and falling like shallow waves frozen in gray dust. The survivors moved slowly but steadily, guided by Ethan's quiet instructions and Kira's calm pace beside them. The late afternoon light filtered through drifting particles, turning the ruined landscape into a muted haze of warm golds and soft blues. Ethan kept an eye on the ground, noticing how the cracks widened in some areas and narrowed in others. The planet felt restless, as if a deeper quiver waited beneath the surface, unspoken but present. Kira noticed too. She slowed for a moment, tilting her head as her visor displayed a string of turquoise data across her amber eyes. "Pressure levels are building again," she murmured. "A mild aftershock is likely." Ethan looked back at the older man and children. We should get them under cover until it passes. Kira pointed toward a half-collapsed awning made of reinforced alloy beams that had folded into a natural lean-to. There, she said. It will shield them from debris if anything shifts. They guided the group toward the shelter. The children settled beneath the angled beams, wrapping their blankets tighter around their shoulders. The older man leaned against the alloy wall, breathing slow but steady. Kira remained at the edge of the structure, watching the horizon with the alert stillness of someone who had stood through far worse. Ethan stood beside her, adjusting the straps on his vest. For a moment, there was only quiet, the kind of quiet that came before a storm decided whether to grow or fade. Then the tremor arrived, a gentle roll beneath their boots, more like the planet clearing its throat than shouting again. Dust drifted from a nearby ledge, but the ground held. The children looked toward Ethan and Kira, eyes wide but calm, trusting the steadiness of the two figures standing guard. When the movement faded, Kira exhaled slowly. It is easing, she said. We can move soon. Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting to the badge on his vest. Its soft blue glow pulsed in a rhythm that no longer felt reassuring. Kira, he said quietly, what exactly does the system record when someone is marked as an asset? Kira turned to him, her expression thoughtful. It means you are assigned under the authority of a higher-ranking responder. It is used for equipment, rescue tools, and sometimes temporary custodial transfers. But not for people, Ethan said, his voice tightening just slightly. Kira hesitated, the pause gentle but real. It should not be for people, she admitted. But some systems still categorize non-citizen personnel by function rather than identity. It is an outdated classification. Ethan looked out across the ruins, trying to steady the uneasy feeling inside him. So to the system, I am not counted as a survivor who made decisions or acted on my own. I am just something you retrieved. Kira stepped closer, close enough that the soft glow of her visor brushed across the dust on his suit. Ethan, she said, her voice low but firm, that is not how I see you. And it is not how today happened. He met her gaze. But it is how the system recorded it. Kira looked toward the survivors resting beneath the beams, then back to Ethan with a quiet resolve forming behind her eyes. We will correct it, she said. I will not let the system erase your contribution. Not after everything you have done. Her words carried weight, not loud but certain, like a stabilizer beam settling into place after strain. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but a faint crackle from Kira's wrist console interrupted them. A soft turquoise signal pulsed across the screen. She studied it with a focused intensity. Evacuation command has updated, she said. They want all survivors moved immediately to the North Ridge checkpoint. Ethan glanced at the resting family. Can they handle the climb? Yes, Kira said. If we go together. Ethan nodded, feeling her confidence bolster his own. They turned back toward the survivors, the dust swirling in slow, gentle currents around them. Let us bring them home, Kira said softly. And with the last light of the fading afternoon guiding their steps, they continued the journey toward safety, unaware of the choices ahead that would soon test both the system and the fragile bond forming between human and alien. The climb toward the North Ridge checkpoint took them along a narrow path carved between broken support pillars and slabs of shifted earth, the world around them still humming with the quiet, unsettled energy of a planet adjusting to its new shape. The sky carried a muted glow, the kind that appears after dust has risen and settled again, turning the light into a soft haze. Kira walked ahead with one of the children holding her hand, her turquoise silhouette steady against the fractured landscape. Ethan stayed close behind with the older man and the second child, adjusting their pace every few steps to match the man's careful footing. The ground felt uneven, but the tremors had eased for now, giving them a small window of calm. As they neared the ridge base, Kira slowed. Her visor flickered with incoming data, painting turquoise glyphs across her amber eyes. She lifted her wrist console, and a thin line of text scrolled across the screen. Ethan stepped beside her. Is something wrong? She hesitated before answering. A command update. The system has flagged the North Ridge checkpoint as a restricted access zone. Only registered personnel and their assigned assets are permitted entry until further assessment. Ethan felt a tightening sensation in his chest. Assigned assets, he repeated quietly. That classification again. Kira turned to him, her expression sharpening. This is not how it should be. You are not equipment. You have acted as an engineer and a rescuer all day. Ethan looked down at his badge. The soft blue glow blinked twice, then pulsed in a slow rhythm. If the system thinks I am under your authority, he said softly, they may deny me entry unless you bring me in as cargo. The children watched them with wide eyes. The older man leaned heavily on Ethan's arm, unaware of the tension building. Kira lowered her visor, her voice dropping into a calm that held more weight than any raised tone. You are not cargo, and I will not let a system treat you as such. She tapped her console again, brows tightening as if reading something more troubling. There is another note, she said. A directive instructing responders to expedite the assessment of all non-citizen personnel. It appears you have been marked for evaluation. Ethan exhaled slowly. Evaluation for what? Kira shook her head. The message does not say, but I do not trust the timing. The children tugged at Kira's arm, anxious to keep moving. She softened her posture to reassure them, then turned back to Ethan with a steadiness that felt almost like a vow. We will reach the checkpoint, she said. And when we do, you will stand beside me as an equal. I will not submit you under that classification. Ethan gave a small, strained smile. If you do that, the system may not let us through. Kira met his eyes. Then the system will adjust. Or it will answer to me. There was no arrogance in her tone, only conviction. Ethan had seen that kind of resolve before in people who believed deeply in something greater than policy. But seeing it in Kira stirred something inside him he had not expected. Before he could speak, the ground beneath them gave a soft shudder. Not a sharp jolt, but a long, rolling tremor that sent small clouds of dust drifting from the ridge above. Kira reacted instantly. Move, she said, guiding the children under a natural alcove formed by two leaning slabs. Ethan helped the older man inside. They waited, breath held, as the tremor faded like a sigh. When the ground settled again, Kira checked her readings. The ridge is still stable, she said. But we should not delay. They resumed the climb, carefully navigating the final stretch. The top of the ridge came into view, marked by the faint blue glow of checkpoint beacons pulsing through the dusty air. Ethan braced himself, feeling the weight of the impending confrontation in every step. Kira walked just ahead of him, tall and unwavering, her silhouette framed by the soft light of the beacons. When we reach the scanners, she said quietly, stay beside me, no matter what the system displays. Ethan nodded, trusting her more in that moment than he trusted the ground beneath his own boots. And together, with the survivors walking between them, they stepped into the glow of the checkpoint lights, unaware of the revelation waiting on the other side. The checkpoint beacons glowed in soft blue arcs as Ethan and Kira guided the survivors into the scanning lane. The air smelled faintly of warm circuitry and dust, the kind that softened the edges of light until everything felt wrapped in a muted haze. A line of responders waited near the entrance, their consoles projecting thin turquoise screens that rippled with identification data. Kira stepped forward first, her visor retracting so the scanners could read her face. The console chimed once, clear and bright. Sergeant Kira Thal, the responder announced, authorized entry. Kira turned slightly, motioning Ethan to stand beside her. He is with me, she said. Ethan Cole, structural engineer. Independent. The responder nodded and tapped a command. Ethan lifted his chin, letting the cool scanning beam trace across his features. His badge blinked in response, sending its signature to the console. A moment passed, then the screen flickered. Once. Twice. And instead of Ethan's name appearing, a new line of text scrolled across the display in quiet, unwavering letters. Asset Identifier. 47C, Custodian, Sergeant Kira Thal. The words hung in the air, soft but sharp, a classification that did not belong to a living person at all. Ethan's stomach tightened. The children looked up, confused by the silence. Kira's expression changed, the calm lines of her face tightening into something colder, more deliberate. Override that, she said. He is not an asset. He is a civilian engineer. The responder hesitated. Sergeant, the system registered him under your custodial authority during the quake. It automatically categorized him under. Override it, Kira repeated, her tone steady but firm enough to leave no room for debate. The responder swallowed and tapped the console again. The screen pulsed, then returned the same designation, refusing the change. Kira stepped closer, her shadow falling across the holographic panel. "This classification is incorrect," she said. "He acted independently. He contributed expertise that saved multiple lives. The system will acknowledge that." Ethan felt the air shift around them, thickening with the weight of something unspoken. He lifted his badge, showing the blue glow to the responder. "Try reading it manually," he said. The responder scanned it again. This time, a second message appeared beneath the first, as if the Quake logs had been holding something back. Field operations note. Structural analysis provided by Ethan Cole. Evacuation pathway advised by Ethan Cole. Stabilizer surge prediction confirmed by Ethan Cole. The responder blinked. "There are multiple entries," he said. "The system logged your actions, but they were appended under Sergeant Thal's authority." Kira drew a slow breath. "Separate them," she said. "Assign them to his name." The responder tapped out a manual command. The screen paused, then shifted, reorganizing the data until a clean line finally appeared. Contributions: Ethan Cole. Status: Independent Engineer. The asset designation dissolved from the screen in a soft ripple, replaced by the one thing Ethan had feared the system would not allow: his name standing alone. Kira looked at him then, her amber eyes steady in the drifting dust. "The system remembers you correctly now," she said softly. There was no triumph in her voice, only truth. The children approached, pulling gently on Ethan's sleeve. "Are we safe now?" one of them asked. Ethan knelt to meet their eyes. "Yes," he said. "You are. Safe." Kira watched him, her expression unreadable but warm at the edges, as if the day's weight had settled into something quieter. The responders guided the survivors past the checkpoint, wrapping them in blankets and ushering them toward the med-zone lights glowing further up the ridge. Ethan and Kira walked together, neither speaking, the quiet between them steady and full. At the crest of the ridge, they paused. The colony spread below them, cracked and fragile under the evening sky, but alive. Kira reached into her gear pack and pulled out Ethan's badge, carefully wiped clean of dust. She held it out to him, the blue glow reflecting in her eyes. "Keep it close," she said. "It carries your name now." Ethan took it, feeling its weight settle in his hand, heavier and truer than before. He looked at Kira, at the fading light behind her, at the calm strength in her posture. No words were needed. The wind carried a hush across the broken ground, a quiet echo that held the weight of everything they had survived. And for the first time since the quake began, the silence felt like recognition.